Hey, thanks for stopping by my channel. Today I'm working on a GM 3100 V6 engine. It's a 2001 Chevy Malibu. I'm getting a misfire code P0300, which is a random multiple misfire. So it's something that's affecting the whole system. It's not isolated to one specific cylinder. If that was the case, it would be P0301 for the first cylinder, or 02 for the second cylinder, and so on until you get to the number of cylinders that you had. If that last digit has a number, 1 through 4 if you have a 4-cylinder, 1 through 6 if you have a 6-cylinder, or 1 through 8 if you have an 8-cylinder, then it's that specific cylinder that's throwing the error code. But in my case, it's just saying a random misfire, P0300. Now, just a little history on this car. It's 17 years old. I picked this up from my daughter about 2 or 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. It had low mileage at the time. It had maybe 78,000 when I bought it. Just to give you a better view here, where am I? You have obviously 3 cylinders on the front here of this engine. You have 2, 4, and 6 in the front, and then over here behind the coil packs, which is a pain in the butt, on the bottom of the engine you have 1, 3, 5 on the back of the engine. Before I change out all the plugs on this, it's always a good idea, before you take the plugs out, to hit it with compressed air, just so any dirt, grime, or rust that's over there around the edge of the plug doesn't get dropped into the piston in that cylinder. In my case, I lent my compressor to somebody, so I don't have it at the moment. But what I am going to use, improvise, I have this air mattress inflator. I'm going to use this, turn it on, and just basically put my finger over the one side and just hit it with the air. So let's get started. And then do the 3 back cylinders as well. Now that we got this all blown out with compressed air, all the spark plugs, I had tried taking, what is it, number 2 out, and it's in there pretty snug. As I said, I think these are all original plugs, wires, coils. Instead of forcing it and trying to, put too much pressure and get impatient and possibly wind up stripping it out or breaking the plug in the cylinder, I'm going to use some WD-40. I'm going to spray each plug, the 3 in the front and the 3 in the rear, and I'm going to let it sit overnight just to let it soak in, and then I'll hit this tomorrow and hopefully these plugs will come out easier. So just going to hit it with some WD-40. I'm standing on the driver's side of the vehicle, and I'm looking in the engine bay from that side. So just looking at the coil packs, the one farthest, or the one closest to the passenger side, the top one is number 5 cylinder, the bottom one is number 2 cylinder. Then moving to the center one, the top one is number 3 on the middle coil pack, so number 3 cylinder and number 6 cylinder. And then moving over to the one closest to the driver's side, the top one is number 4 cylinder, and the bottom one is number 1 cylinder. So just keep track of that, and try to do one wire at a time so you don't get mixed up. And if you are switching out the coil packs with new ones or your spark plug wires, make sure you use a marker, like a Sharpie or something, just to write it down so you know which one is which. I said earlier about taking pictures with your cell phone of the spark plug wires, which cylinder goes to which, and the same thing with the coil packs. You could also do this just as a crude reference. I'm standing in the front of the vehicle by the headlights, looking at the engine, and the front left cylinder is number 2 cylinder, the center cylinder in the front is number 4, and the far right one on the driver's side is number 6 cylinder. Then if you go to the rear, the far left is number 1 cylinder, middle is number 3 cylinder, driver's side rear is number 5 cylinder. And then on the coil packs, there are 3 separate coil packs, and the corresponding spark plug wires are 5 cylinder, 2 cylinder, 3 cylinder, 6 cylinder, 4 cylinder, 1 cylinder. The first thing I did, and what I normally do, is I disconnect the negative battery terminal just to play it safe, that you don't accidentally short anything out. So that's something you don't have to worry about. So if you want, disconnect the negative battery terminal. These are my new spark plug wires. They're AC Delco, and these are the numbers, the part number. And then these are the coil packs. This is 1 coil pack, and this is the part number. And with the new coil packs, they don't have the cylinder numbers. So once I'm going along setting it all up, I'm going to use a gray Sharpie or silver Sharpie and just write on here the corresponding cylinder number. So if you ever have to change anything out again, you won't get confused. And the coil pack also comes with this rubber insert that you put on the bottom between your module and your coil pack. I'll also be using some anti-seize lubricant to put on the thread of the spark plugs, just a little bit, just so in the future if you have to take them out and change them out again, they won't stick like they are sticking now. And these are the spark plugs I'm using. Something you want to do is just with your new spark plugs, just use a gap tester and make sure it's correct. I'm just using a 5/8 socket. It's magnetized. Now, of course, the black cloud that hangs over my life, this spark plug is still stuck in there pretty good. So what I'm doing is tightening a little and then loosening a little bit, and it's not budging at all, but I'm going to keep working it until it finally will break free. Okay, what I did was I put a bigger ratchet on. With a little bit longer handle, and it was able to break free. So 1 down, 5 to go. I'm just very curious to see what kind of condition this plug is in, because I'm sure it's going to look horrible. Okay, once you get the plug broken free, you can take the ratchet off and just use the extension to unscrew it. And you can see how corroded this is. So like I said, these were more than likely the original. Just to compare the two, the one on the left is obviously the old one, the one on the right is the new one. I'm just going to use a little bit of the anti-seize on the threads. Be careful not to get anything on the diode. If you do that, you're going to wind up throwing another check engine code for a misfire. You don't have to put a lot, but just enough that you won't have problems in the future. And then just make sure you wipe off your finger before you screw it in. As I said earlier, this 5/8 socket is good. It's magnetized, so I'm just going to use that and just screw it in gently. Just go nice and slow so you don't cross thread it. And now I'm just going to use the ratchet just to tighten it down. Okay, you don't have to go crazy with tightening it, just so it's snug, and a quarter turn past that. And now I'll move on to number 4 cylinder. Always give it like 1/8 of a turn to the right, like you're tightening it first before you start to loosen it, and then switch it back and try loosening it. And if it doesn't come loose, then give it another 1/8 of a turn to tighten, and then back to loosen. And there we go. And that's number 4. Looks pretty horrible. That's why I'm getting those misfire, the Random Misfire, the multiple misfire, P0300. I put anti-seize on number 4 spark plug. I'm going to put that in, and I'm just going to go down the line and do the same. Now I have all 3 of the front spark plugs in. Now I'm going to take off this loom. It's held in by these clips. You just lift up and the clip will come off, and just put the clip off on the side because we'll reuse that later. There's another one up above, and just do the same thing. Then if you just turn the loom, there's an opening, you just slide it right off the wires. And we're going to save this as well for later, so put that off on the side. I have both looms off. There was one short one here and a longer one here. The purpose of the loom is to protect the wires so they don't get burned on the hot engine. Now there's a clip here, a wire clip that holds each individual spark plug wire. We're going to open that up. Now with this clip, you can just use a small screwdriver or a pick, and you just push in underneath this bracket and pull, and it comes right up. Then we're going to pop the wires out. And same thing down below here as well. As you can see, the new spark plug wires are different lengths, so you want to kind of line them up longest to shortest. We're going to start replacing number 2, 4, and 6 wires. I'm going to take number 2 spark plug wire, the old one, and follow it up. It goes underneath the other wires around here, and it goes to the coil back here. So it goes up through here, underneath, around, and then over to the coil. Just pop it off, and we are going to pull this out. And just take it out. Then we're just going to match up the old number 2 wire with a new one of the same length. Now I'm fairly certain the spark plug wire that I just picked out, the new one, is the same length as the old number 2, but the new wires do not have the numbers on them. So just temporarily, I just used painter's tape and put number 2 in 2 spots on the wire on either end. Just in the event that I did make a mistake, I can switch it out later, and then once I'm certain which wire goes to which cylinder, then I'll write it on the wire itself and take the tape off. Dielectric grease. Just going to use a dab. And just put some on the head of the spark plug. And I'm going to do this with each spark plug as I put it in and connect it to the spark plug wire. That'll help with the continuity of the spark, and it helps repel moisture and water. I'm going to take my new spark plug wire that I have the number 2 on and put that on until it clicks. And now I'm going to proceed to do the same thing with number 4 cylinder and number 6 cylinder plug. I have all 3 spark plug wires in the front, 2, 4, and 6 cylinders hooked up, and I reattached the loom and the 2 brackets to hold the loom on, and also the loom over here, and the 2 brackets to hold that loom on. Now to tackle the back 3 cylinders, 1, 3, and 5. 1, 3, and 5. On some GM 3100 engines, you have the dog bone engine mounts. This engine does not have that. So in order to gain better access to those rear 3 cylinders to get the plugs out, I'm going to take out each coil pack. I'm replacing them anyway, but I'll show you how to take them out. To take out the coil packs, you're going to need a 5.5 socket. I'm standing on the passenger side of the engine, and from the passenger side, this is the first coil pack, cylinders 2 and 5. The middle one is cylinder 6 and 3, and the one closest to the driver's side is cylinders 1 and 4. Now, each coil pack has 2 bolts that are holding it in, one in the front and one in the rear back here. That's what you're going to use your 5.5 socket on, 5.5 millimeter. And these should come out fairly easy. And these bolts are fairly long. And we'll do the same thing on the rear bolt. Have both screws out, both bolts out of the first coil pack. And we're just going to ease that on out. This is where I took the coil pack off. And if you can see, we have a new one of these that we're going to put on. So we're going to take this one off and toss it away. I'm just using a pick just to pull it off. Just going to use my finger and pull it off. And we'll put the new one on. There's 2 little slots, and then just push it back all the way down. Then just move on to the other 2 coil packs and do the same thing. With all 3 coil packs out, you'll be able to get your hand in here a lot more, and it'll give you better access to remove the plugs and the wires. I've taken out all 3 spark plug wires from the rear, cylinders 1, 3, and 5. Now, just as a side note, if this video is helping you out along the way, if you could give a like and consider subscribing if you haven't already. I don't know if this is falling on deaf ears. This is like my 35th video so far, and I haven't gotten one comment, either good, bad, or indifferent. So I don't know if it's worthwhile making these videos, so if you wouldn't mind, just at least leave a comment down below and let me know if it helped you out. That's my intention. So back to this. Now I'm going to proceed to take out the spark plugs in the rear. The first spark plug I'm taking out in the rear is number 1 cylinder. That's the one that's underneath the alternator. I'm using an extension on the 5/8 socket and a flex head ratchet, and thankfully it's coming out. And it's almost there. And there we go. Put some anti-seize on the threads. And for these rear spark plugs, I'm going to put the dielectric grease on the pin right now because you won't be able to see once you're screwing it in. Then I put the spark plug into the 5/8 socket. It has this extendable attached rotating extension on it, and I'm going to use that to screw it in. It's magnetized, as I said, so it won't fall out. Just a word of warning, be prepared for a fight, because that number 1 spark plug is a pain in the rear to get back in. Just be persistent. It's way down in there, so you're going to need something to grip that spark plug. You won't be able to just do it with your fingers. So if you have an old boot from the old spark plug wire, you could cut off and use that. Or, like I said, use the tool that I have with the extension on the socket that's attached. It makes it a little bit easier, but it's still a pain. This is the last plug I'm putting in. This is number 5. So almost there. After this, I'm going to put on the coil packs. These are the old coil packs back here. Remember they had the numbers on them? These are the new coil packs. They did not have the numbers on them, so I just used a gray Sharpie, a silver Sharpie, and I put the corresponding numbers on the new ones that were on the old ones, and double checked according to my chart. And 4 and 1. This one got a little screwed up. I hit a ridge as I was making the 1, so disregard that. That's a 1. And now I'm going to proceed to put the new coil packs on. Now that the spark plugs are all in and the rear ones are in, I just finished doing those, I'm going to put on my new spark plug wires in the rear for cylinders 1, 3, and 5. And after I get those strapped in, I will put the coil packs on. On the bottom of each coil pack, you can see these 2 slots. Those have to plug into the 2 pins on each coil pack. So it's going to go on like this. I'm putting in the top screw of number 5 and 2 coil. First, you can see the bolt, you can line it up in the hole. And don't tighten it down all the way yet. Just get it snug. And then we're going to proceed to the next coil and then the last coil. Put the top screws in those. And then we're going to feed in the bottom screws bolts. And then we're done with that. I have all 3 top bolts finger tightened in. Now I'm going to proceed to put the 3 bottom bolts and finger tighten them. I have all the bolts finger tightened. I'm going to start with the driver's side back one. Just make it snug. I'm going to do an X pattern from there to here. Then in the back here to the driver's side front. And then so on. And just make them snug. You don't have to over tighten them. What I'm going to do now is hook up all the boots of the spark plug wires onto the coils, the corresponding cylinders. Remember, I marked them all with painter's tape and marker, and we're just going to put them on the corresponding ones. Everything's hooked back together. Don't forget to reconnect your negative battery terminal. Just make sure before starting your engine that everything is out of the engine bay. Tools, ratchets, sockets, dielectric grease. Just make sure it's all out of there. Just start the engine, see how it sounds. If everything is good, then I'm going to remove all the painter's tape with the numbers on it. But as I do, I'm going to write down on the wires themselves with the silver Sharpie what cylinder it goes to. So I'll take the 2 off the tape and I'll write 2 on the wire, and the same thing up by the coil. I apologize for the poor video quality now. My camera died and I'm using an old camcorder I have. Okay, sounded pretty good. Engine sounding pretty good. I'm just giving it a minute. It's been a few days since this thing's been started, and when it was starting it was pretty rough. So that rough idle has gone away. The RPMs were jumping a bit before I changed everything. And I was getting a flashing check engine light the last time I used the car. So I'm going to take it for a test drive. I don't think it's going to come back on. If it does, I'll show you, but I don't think it will. Being everything sounded good, what I'm going to start doing is 1 wire at a time. I'm going to remove the painter's tape with the number, and I'm going to write the number on the wire. Alright, we are all done. Engine sounds good. And I have the peace of mind of knowing that all the plugs are done right, the wiring is done right, and the coil packs are done right. Now believe me, if I could do this, don't be intimidated. You can do this as well. It's not that difficult. Just give yourself enough time and take your time when you're doing it. Just go nice and slow, removing the plugs and everything, and putting them back in. Just go nice and slow. By doing this job yourself, I paid $200 for the parts. So if you brought it to a shop, multiply that by 3, so you'd pay roughly $600 for the parts plus the labor involved, which would probably run you, it's $57.50 a half hour. So they're probably going to charge you 2 hours worth of labor, so that's another couple of $130. So you'd probably be paying upwards of $900 for doing this in a shop. So you save yourself a ton of money by doing this yourself. Give it a try. It's not that hard, as I said. If this video helped you out, please give a thumbs up. Consider subscribing. And leave a comment down below if there's anything I should have included. I'd love to get your feedback. Or if this helped you out in any way, I'd love to get your feedback on that as well. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.